The member for Fredericton Grand Lake Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to rise today and speak on Bill 35 and the importance of the bill. I guess I want to begin by giving my admiration for teachers across the province. And, you know, I often talk to generations that are a little older than me about how the classrooms have changed over the years, and especially when it comes to retired teachers. And what I hear a lot from them is the dynamics of the classrooms today are a whole lot different, a whole lot more challenging, certainly than they were many years ago. There's a lot of concern that I hear from some of those retired teachers in terms of how they are able to conduct the classrooms, or how new teachers are able to conduct their classrooms today in terms of discipline and other measures. And there's always that fine balance because, of course, parental rights have to trump everything, but at the same time, teachers have to be able to coordinate their classrooms and ensure that all students have an opportunity at a good, solid education. And like other people in this room, and those in the public, of course, as a father, these changes have an impact, a personal impact. It's not just something that, it seems kind of arm's length. Got 3 children, 2 of which are currently in the public education system, 1 which is going to be coming through. So, every decision we make as legislators and what we support or do not support affects us. It affects our family. It affects the ones that we love, and it affects the teachers that are on the front lines. And I've got lots of teacher friends that, again, they work very hard. They put in more hours than what they did years ago, from what I've been told, and sometimes even take out of pocket for the needs of the kids in the classrooms and some of the issues that they face. When I look at this bill, an act respecting empowering the school system, it is indeed a big bill. It's large in content, and it certainly has a lot of things in there. Again, some good, like most bills, there's some good things in there, and there's some things in there that I think are certainly debatable on whether they are positive or negative in nature. I know one thing that I've heard from teachers and even school principals specifically was they often feel that when issues arise in the school system, that they feel like the department or the district or even the minister in times in the past don't really have their back, and they feel like they're getting they're not getting support, and they feel like they're getting attacked on all sides, and when there's a dispute, they feel like they're taking heat from, those that they are accountable to within the school district and the department. They feel like they take heat from the parents, and it's the old adage that my dad used to say that when he went to school, if there was an issue at school when he was a child, he got it both times. He got it at school, and he got it when he got home from his parents. And teachers are telling me that there's a certain loss in that today, in our generation, in our society, where teachers just sometimes don't feel like parents have their back. It seems to be oftentimes siding more with the child and when it comes to disciplinary action. So, and I say all that to say that teachers have a difficult role. They have a challenging job like they've never had before. And I am pleased to see that there are some changes in this bill to help address that. And when you look at the original Education Act, it talks about the duties of teachers, and it lays out what is required of a teacher, things like a positive learning environment, implementing a working environment plan, maintaining deportment consistent with his or her position of trust and influence over young people. And there's a list of things that are required of teachers when it comes to the classroom. the changes that this bill will introduce, from what I can see, which is not found in the original Education Act, is the opportunity for teachers and principals to be able to bring those concerns to the minister. What I did find interesting in the wording of the bill, in section 27E1, it says, talking about teachers and to the minister, reporting concerns and feedback to the superintendent concerned or the minister in a respectful, constructive, informed, and fact-based manner. And while I, again, agree with including this into the Education Act so that that avenue is there, I did kind of have to scratch my head on how teachers are to do that according to this bill in a respectful, constructive, informed, and fact-based manner. The question I would have is, you know, teachers should be able to go to the minister or the superintendent primarily, but the minister also, if necessary, without feeling any repercussions. And to have that in the Act, again, I commend the minister for including that in there, but I do kind of question some of the wording around how the teachers bring these concerns forward. I think that could have been omitted, because I would dare say that most teachers that are coming forward with legitimate concerns that they need to have, that they need to be heard out by the superintendent or the minister. It goes on to talk about creating a positive learning and working environment that allows for open discussion, constructive dialogue, and the sharing of concerns or constructive feedback by school personnel and volunteers. Again, another positive step. Teachers and principals, they need to know that the department, the district, are there to support them. And there's no question, like any profession, there's always going to be teachers that are going to cross a line. There's going to be teachers that are going to step out of bounds, whether it's the frustration of the job, maybe they're just not fit to do the job in the first place, but they are very few and far between. And I think what's happened over the years is it's those few and far between that has created a system by which teachers now feel like when an issue comes up, they no longer have the department, the district, or the parents to support them on those issues, but they feel automatically at wrong without any proper investigations. I've talked to teachers that have gone through the process, and you can see on their face and you can hear in their voice the stress. And again, one particular that I'm thinking of was cleared of wrongdoing, but the process by which this teacher had to go through was grueling. And I always say the job in and of itself is more challenging today, I believe, than it's ever been. Again, talking to older generations, it is more challenging. The classrooms are bigger. There's more diversity within the classrooms of needs and accommodating each child, which we obviously have to do to ensure that every child has an opportunity of education. But it is much different today, much more challenging today, I think, than it's ever been. So I hope that in these changes to the Education Act in this bill, that it helps allow or helps give the sense for principals and teachers to know that when issues come up in the future, they have a district, a department that will have their back, again, allowing due process to take place, because you always have to remember that, like any profession, there are going to be a few bad apples in the bunch, and there has to be a process by which those ones that step out of line have disciplinary action. And that's why I also support the other section of the bill that talks about, you know, releasing the names of teachers once they have been found guilty of certain charges, and the process has gone through and they've they've been deemed to be out of line and removed from the school system. I support that parents need to know, other educational institutions need to know in the event that they try to teach somewhere else. So another positive move that I think is a good part of this bill. One thing that I have always believed in and feel that is important is for local institutions to have local autonomy. Excuse me. I think for too long, so many of our institutions have become centralized, whether you're talking about hospitals, clinics, schools. They feel like they lose that local power to be able to make decisions on a local level. And I understand that, things have changed over time. I think of even paramedics and ambulances and response times and all that, and the change that happened there several years ago. They were good changes in the sense that the standard was raised, that all paramedics, all ambulance services were brought together under one so they could all have that same standard of service. I understand it's the same with education. They want a centralized standardization of education, healthcare, etc. And all of that is good, but I feel that because of these centralization of these institutions, that we've kind of forfeited that local autonomy to make decisions. And what I would have liked to seen in the bill, especially when it comes to principals of schools, is to give them a little more authority in terms of even how the school is used by the community. Now, I may be corrected if I'm wrong, but my understanding is a lot of times when an organization wants to use a school gym or use a school facility, they are sometimes pushed on to the district because the district has to make that decision. And I think, a little more local authority to principals would be good in that manner, and allowing them to move based on the needs of their school, the facilities they have, and the needs of the community. And again, that's another positive change that not necessarily in this bill, but I've seen over the years, is that schools have become more community-based facilities. And I think that's a positive thing. I know pickleball is becoming a big thing in a lot of rural areas, and it's because of the local high school in my community that a group of people can get together and get some exercise, have some social settings in a sport environment, and use the local school gym. I think that's great. I've always said, what is the point of having this $1 million facility sit empty in the summer with no use, or on the weekends with no use, if we can have community organizations taking part in the use of the facility? So again, that is good. I think those are good things that have happened over the years, that we see a lot of these schools being able to be utilized as community facilities for different organizations. It's no surprise that in this bill, one of the most contentious parts of the bill is in the relation to school assessments, test assessments, and psychological assessments that go with it to determine a student's level in which they are able to have an education plan mapped out for them. And Mr. Speaker, I understand both sides. I think the Minister of Education has done a good job to explain that there is a significant issue with wait times. And I agree with the Minister that indeed, if you have some kids that are waiting years on end that can't even get any type of assessment, that is significantly problematic, because that child is going to be continuing on a school plan, an education plan, that just simply doesn't fit. And as a result, they're not able to reach the potential that they could reach if the assessment was there to be able to determine where they are at and have that customization for their educational needs. So I get that. I sympathize with that. I don't believe for a second that that section of the bill is there to somehow undermine psychologists or create more harm. I mean, it may intentionally do that. We don't know, but I would say that the thought behind it is to help alleviate some of the backlog. I sympathize with that. I truly do. On the flip side of that, it takes on a different approach when you talk to professionals, when you talk to psychologists, when you get letters and emails from organizations and groups that are directly involved with this, that are asking the government to tap the brakes on this and to not proceed. And I know the minister has said that there's other provinces that use what he is trying to introduce into New Brunswick, and they use the same or similar system. And there was a letter that was put out by the British Columbia Association of School Psychologists that did refute some of the comments made in relation to BC. And in the letter, the author of the letter, the president of the British Columbia Association of School Psychologists, she wrote that to clarify that teachers in British Columbia, even in specialized positions, do not administer Level C assessments, and that Level C instruments are carried out only by qualified professionals, certified school psychologists or registered psychologists. To work as a school psychologist in British Columbia, you must, at a minimum, hold a master's degree in school psychology or equivalent, with graduate coursework in specific areas, a 1,200-hour supervised internship, and be a member of the British Columbia Association of School Psychologists. While some psychologists in British Columbia may also hold teaching certificates, it is graduate-level degrees in psychology in alignment with the profession body that provides the ability to practice and conduct assessments. This skill set is crucial in ensuring that comprehensive assessments can provide high value and useful information to the school and family, rather than simple test scores that could be misinterpreted by someone without adequate training and experience. This could have detrimental effects, leading to educational decisions that could have real-life consequences and harm for students. So therein lies the real dilemma. On one hand, you have numerous students that are backlogged to get proper assessments so they can have a learning plan developed to their needs. On the flip side, you have professionals like psychologists, not just in New Brunswick, but clearly across the country, that are saying you're putting more harm to these kids by allowing people that are not properly qualified to do these assessments to help alleviate the backlog. So it's difficult. I'm not going to stand here and say this is an easy thing one way or the other, because again, I'm concerned that harm is currently being done, but then I'm concerned, are we making the problem worse by not allowing professional, trained people to do the job? You know, I think of it in the same sense that, you know, if you go to a surgeon for a certain ailment physically, you want a surgeon that is professionally trained and certified in that surgery to do it. I certainly wouldn't want heart surgery performed on me by an optometrist that had 1,000 hours of training in heart surgery. You know, and I mean, the list could go on and on. So there's a dilemma there, unquestionably. And the question is what do we do in the short term to alleviate that backlog? Is this the best thing that government can do right now? And then the second question is this quote-unquote solution to a problem we're facing now going to exacerbate long-term results? That is the question that every single one of us as MLAs have to consider. And that's the way these things work. I mean, clearly, we're here democratically elected by people that we are here to represent them in their best interest. And we have to, put politics aside and be able to look at these things as objectively as possible and try to do what each of us feel is best in terms of, voting in favor or voting against in relation to these bills. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't have a whole lot else to add to that. Again, when I look at the bill as a whole, I do have concerns in relation to the assessments done not by psychologists, but I also have concerns about the current backlog. I see good parts of this bill, as I said earlier, in relation to allowing open dialogue between teachers and the superintendent and the minister. I'm actually quite surprised that isn't in the original Education Act. If you can't have that dialogue between the employee and the employer, you've got yourself a real issue. So that is one issue that I'm glad to see in this bill. The other issue, again, is the section that allows for principals and teachers to have that level of support, especially when they find themselves in an investigative process that, again, can be very difficult for that teacher. And again, I've said this a couple times, but I understand there's bad apples in every bunch. But my concern is that we don't overcompensate to catch the bad apples, that we hurt a lot of good apples or a lot of good teachers in the process. And I think there's parts of that bill that hopefully will help alleviate some of that and bring that balance back to that process and create a little more of a level playing field. I guess I will say that. So again, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to speak to this bill, and I look forward to when the vote comes down. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.